Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining for this month's webinar. We're going to be looking at 2023 in review. This just gives us the opportunity to think about everything that happened. And certainly there's more that happened than what I'm going to present on these slides to you guys over the next 30 minutes. Things that happened in your vertical, things that happened within your organization, within your department, within your team. And also, what happened to you this year? For me, huge year. Left the safety of corporate world and started my own business here, Solving Work. But so much more has happened. All right, let's get to it. So I want to ask a question. Looking back at 2023 and the goals you set in January, did you accomplish the goal? If you did accomplish the goal, amazing. Was it at the cost that you assumed it would be? Did it take longer? Did things get in the way? Or did you have to pivot? Did you pivot on your goal? Did you take a DNF? It did not finish. There's also a sliding scale here between one end and the other, and there's no good or bad. There are the choices that you made, and I'm sure you made them for the right reasons. And when we look at the reasons that we've made these choices, a lot of what we're going to talk about in the next slides is probably part of that. And I think that they probably were the right choices. And what I want to do for 2024 is go in maybe with eyes a little wider, open, and with an eye on what happened and what could potentially happen next year. What I've found really, is that we make our plan and then we get hit with the disruptions and then we fall into what I like to call the logistics doom loop. We go all hands on deck until we get everything under control, circle back to these priorities that we set January 1, kind of freak out because we're so much further behind than when we even started. And by the time we make that plan, we get hit with the next disruption and the next disruption and the next disruption. So I bring this up for two reasons. One is, let's have some grace. Let's acknowledge the sort of invisible work that we're doing in this firefighting, in this all hands on deck times. Like, there's a lot of obstacle overcoming. There's a lot of creative problem solving that doesn't get you closer to your goals, but certainly helps keep the ship upright this year. Additionally, let's have perspective when we go into planning for 2024. Let's not plan inside of a vacuum. Stuff is definitely going to happen. So I'm actually going to go over sort of 4 buckets that I think a lot of the disruptions that we experienced this year fell into: politics, labor, technology, climate. And we're going to dive into these in more detail as we proceed. If you think of additional ones, I'm pretty sure I should be able to see the comments come through, especially if you're on LinkedIn. I should be able to see those and drop more stuff in there. Let us know what additional, maybe it's in your vertical or something that I've just overlooked. Please, let's be interactive today on this live. All right. So let's start with labor. Nope, don't like that. We're going to stick with this. All right, we had the West Coast port negotiation. If you guys remember, that contract actually expired in 2022, and they went about 13 months in this sort of purgatory before they were able to sign that agreement. During that period of time, we saw slowdowns, we saw stoppages. We actually saw the West Coast Canada ports go on strike. Ocean carriers try to divert volume into the U.S. West Coast ports, and teams, or the labor unions there, said, nope, we're not unloading those ships. So there was a lot of disruption, additional disruptions in Australia with port strikes, probably more all over the world. It really was the summer of labor. I think the biggest storyline out of that one was the UPS negotiations. And really, the Teamsters forced the hand of Yellow, forcing them into bankruptcy. And of course, the UAW strike as well. So as we look into 2024, we've got the East Coast port contract expiring. So that's probably going to drive people to the West Coast which then could cause some of the congestion and equipment imbalances that we saw post-COVID. For Yellow and UPS, if you are single sourced with your carriers, there's risk there. So there could be some foundational goals for 2024 where you look at diversifying your carrier, whether that's with direct contracts or leveraging a 3PL so that you're not left holding the bag if something happens. Additionally, we're like, okay, well, I'm a FedEx shipper. Well, FedEx is working on, and I think this is a brilliant idea, combining their FedEx Express and FedEx Ground units into one. But the risk here is that they will now fall under the same laws that regulate UPS, which allows the UPS to be unionized, and the Teamsters are going to be hungry to bring FedEx in. So it's not a sure thing. So we just need to have our eyes open to the possibilities. And then in terms of the UAW, that helped drive, domestic trucking rates even further down. And, good rates, low rates are good until it's bad, right? There's going to be an inflection point, things will start coming back up. But, the same idea I've seen on the ocean side, right? Super low rates right now. I mean, they're potentially below what is even meeting their costs. That's going to come home to roost. And I actually had a post on LinkedIn about it yesterday, the ocean boom bust cycle. So if you're interested in learning more, jump over there. I don't know if I can see comments, so hopefully we have rousing discussion going on, but I won't be able to address it on here. So I apologize for that. Let's move on. Politics. We nearly had a government shutdown in October or November of this year. I think it must have been November. And they put a 45-day hold on that. So guess what? We're back in here end of January. We are back to, is the government going to shut down? Is it not going to shut down? The election year is going to throw everything off. Oop, actually, I can see a comment. FedEx Ground Service is unreliable. Hey, so here's your other option on where we just were, right? Here's your other option, and it's not a great option. Now, maybe when they blend their ground and express, their service will improve. They've had both UPS and FedEx, according to their self-reported numbers, are doing better with their peak deliveries this year than they were the year before. But that's something to keep in mind. And when we talk about this, FedEx isn't the only option, right? We've got all of the regionals in play. Amazon is coming for the direct delivery volume. They have exceeded, they had long exceeded FedEx, but they've now exceeded UPS in terms of total volumes delivered. So there is really, really interesting stuff on the horizon, on the parcel side, on the LTL side too. Like, let's not neglect that. We lost Yellow, but really the other carriers in the mix were able to assume that volume without a lot of disruption. That's good for us. As demand increases, if the economy gets better, we're potentially going to see some fallout. We've got the terminals having been negotiated or purchased through the auction, and carriers will start to renovate and bring those online. I'm sure they're going to be looking to get value as soon as possible, but that's going to change the face of the LTL. So thank you, Alex. That's an awesome contribution on the FedEx UPS situation. All right, politics. So we had the government shutdown. We're looking towards maybe another one at the end of January or February. It's an election year. That means everyone is playing a wild, high stakes game. So, you've got one particular group of people that are going to want to see things go smoothly and the economy go well this year. You've got another group of people that are somewhat incentivized for that not to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think we need to keep our eye on it because it makes every single government decision a higher stakes game than it would be in a non-election year. In terms of other things that we have going on, war, Gaza, and Ukraine. So look, first off, before we talk anything about supply chain or logistics disruptions, people are suffering, and that is horrible. And, those are the real issues at hand here. It is out of scope from our conversation today, but I want to certainly acknowledge that. And then I think there's another piece to acknowledge within your teams. This news, the world as it sits, is really, really heavy. And that has an actual impact on the day-to-day lives of the people that aren't directly affected by, what's going on. So I think we need to keep our eyes open for that as we look at bandwidth, as we look at what we can tolerate, as we look at the combination of all the disruptions that we have all over. This is something that we need to look at in terms of, hearts and minds. Logistics related, there are disruptions. It is absolutely impacting the cost of fuel. We're going to see war risk surcharges. We're seeing ships that are being targeted. This can accelerate. I don't really know what's going to happen, of course, but that's important. Supply chain disruption fit into politics or the broader matrix. Look, all of these, everything is connected. Everything is everything. And I think that is the thing that is going to only continue. We are going to continue to see each one of these boxes affect each other, affect the supply chain, affect logistics. It all feeds together. So there is no separation anymore. And I think that's one of the exciting things. And we'll talk about it more when we get to the technology slide and we talk about what generative AI is going to do and bring to us. But the commingling and the intersection of all of these things and how these disruptions disrupt each other and continue to make it more difficult to have, a lean supply chain or just-in-time logistics, that is only going to become more and more true as we continue. The other big thing here, I don't know if politics is the right word, but interest rate hikes, we saw those continue to grow through July of last year. 2022 was wild as well. Stock market is rallying, which is wild. But I think we're going to see interest rates reduce next year. But the damage has been done. And a lot of that damage, at least to the startup world, was done by the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. Now, look, the increases didn't cause the bank to collapse. What the bank had decided to do with their portfolio then put them in a position when interest rates increased to collapse. So it's not a one-to-one. However, that means that the credit market got tighter. That means that a lot of the tech startups in our space, logistics and supply chain, which were funded through SVB, are running out of runway. And I was just listening to a podcast earlier this week that, hey, people, we're still doing all right, but doors are going to close in 24 because people aren't going to get additional funding. And when I look at that, I look at Convoy closing kind of out of the blue. Everyone was pretty surprised on that. That's another area where carrier diversification is going to help us. The Flexport CEO drama, Ryan and Dave Clark and them going head to head in this very public changeover. But, if I look at it from this lens, I'm like, okay, Ryan said, we're going to run out of runway. We have to be profitable now. These big dreams of what we wanted to do, we need to scale back because the environment has changed. So maybe he did the right thing, potentially in the wrong way. History is going to tell us that, hindsight is always 2020. But, when I can understand the moves a lot better looking at it from this lens. And then we look at Omni and Forward Air, this merger drama, where they one of the parties wants it to continue, one wants it to go, one wants it to not happen. I can't imagine the merger of these two organizations under that scenario is going to go well. So that's a whole wild thing. But perhaps with credit markets tightening, they rethought it. Maybe there are other things going on behind the scenes that we don't know about yet that are also driving it. I can't say for certain, but I think we're going to see people run out of runway in 24. I don't know how many of you guys are going to be at Manifest in February, but we'll get a nice look at what the future holds with a lot of supply chain and logistics startups will be there. And I'm going to have the opportunity to meet with them and speak with them. And then I will be doing my live in February is going to be a wrap up of at least what I learned. So one person's perspective. So I hope to see you guys, if not at Manifest, then on our LinkedIn Live in February. Climate. So there are the impacts that climate is going to have on us long term are pretty big. What we saw in 2023 was rather muted. However, Panama Canal drought is going to have a huge impact in 2024. For now, they've reduced the sailings, I think, from like 38 to 36, and then like from 36 to 32. In February, they're cutting the number of sailings to 18. That is a big number. This is where the news headlines of the drought are going to now meet a true pain point. So if you are not looking at what you want to do as a result of the sailings dropping by half, I think it's a good idea. I think we should also keep in mind when we were on the labor page, we were talking about the West or the East Coast ports having their contract negotiations this year. So if that's another reason to move your volume to the West Coast, that's another opportunity for us to be caught in port congestion with equipment imbalances. You know, rates are going to increase as a result of this West Coast crunch. You know, you also have nearshoring, which maybe is diverting some of the volume from that, you know, Southeast Asia to the West Coast, and it's coming up through Mexico over the road. But those projects are a lot longer term. So I caution us to keep an eye on this. And then just in general, I caution us to remember that Chinese New Year is coming in February. So that always has an impact. That is going to be coinciding with the sailing reduction. So yeah, exactly, Alex. We were all shying away from the West Coast, and now we're all going to go back right at the same time. And then maybe it won't be post-COVID level of congestion, but it's definitely going to have an impact. I think hurricanes and snowstorms from last year were pretty muted. We did have Hurricane Idalia, which had some effect in the Southeast, but it was not, you know, a major disruptor, unless it majorly disrupted you. You know, we cannot predict the weather, but, you know, from my perspective, as we see a light year on snowstorms, I start to worry about those wildfires in the summer. From a personal perspective, I live in Denver now. You know, I had a home in the mountains that was threatened by a wildfire just 3 years ago. It was the scariest thing that I, you know, have experienced, to just be watching the fire line move to having near my home be where people were evacuating to, and then to have my home evacuated, to see it affect us even in the metro area. This is coming. So last year, the wildfire smoke, thankfully, it skipped Denver on the jet stream, but it did shut down New York and New Jersey ports. So even if you're not in an area that is wildfire prone, we've seen as like northern Canada, you know, it gets on fire, the smoke is going to wreak havoc across the whole country. And you know, this is a very North America centric view of it, but I imagine these wildfires are an issue in other parts of the world as well. Okay, technology. This is the big one. So I'm going to skip Gen AI for just 1 second and talk about, you know, October, November, DAT goes down for a day, SD cyber attack. So, okay, third shout out for carrier diversification here, but also we need to know, we need a plan B. Even when you're with the big guys, you can still have a big disruption to your business. And I have what I think is a brilliant idea. We need to, as a team building exercise, so I think this could be fun, we need to party like it's 1999. We need a team building meeting where we all sit around and we talk about how would we run our business if it were 1999. Maybe all we have is the internet, phone. How far you want to take it is up to you. But what would we do if our technology went down? What is our plan B? And this happened to me when this was 6, 7 years ago, I don't know if everybody remembers, but here's another hurricane impact. El Faro, a U.S. to Puerto Rico tote ship, was lost at sea during a hurricane. And I had some 50 containers on that ship. And that also happened to be the day that we shut down our entire ERP, all of our email. Everyone in the company had the day off because we were going live on a new ERP. And I get the phone call from the owner because this is logistics. I'm on the golf course trying to enjoy my, day off where there are no emails coming in. And we get the news about what happened to the El Faro. And now I have to find a way, like it's 1999 with no systems, what's on there, what's at risk, which customers are affected, on and on and on we go. So having this, even just having gone through the thought experiment with my team would have made that day a lot easier for me. So I think it could be fun. I think it would be, and I think it'd be value add because we cannot take the technology for granted. We should absolutely implement it. We should leverage it. We should use it. And we should also know how to run our business without it for 24 hours, 72 hours, whatever it may be, because there are bad actors at play that are going to want to disrupt us. There are just random stuff that's going to happen sometimes that are going to cause a disruption. And if it's anything like my life in logistics, it's going to be on the most important load at the most critical juncture. So there you go. All right, Gen AI, it's going to change everything eventually. We have hurdles. We've got hurdles like collaboration across parties. We have hurdles like data quality. We've had ERPs in play for 3-4 decades, and data quality is still the number one ERP issue, and it's going to be the number one issue when we talk about leveraging AI. If our data is not clean and we have artificial intelligence making decisions based on that data, we are going to find ourselves in trouble. So, and then complexity. Ryan Peterson of Flexport just gave the Wall Street Journal an interview, I think yesterday, where he's talked about shipping an ocean container has 146 discrete steps. So we cannot, at least at this point, say to Gen AI, ship an ocean container, but we can start automating some of those 146 discrete steps. So the complexity is going to extend our runway in terms of doing things the way we've always done it. But the future is coming, and we need to start looking for opportunities to do this. I would also say everyone is trying to market their offering as AI enabled. And I think we need to make sure that we parse out marketing from what's really happening. And those are going to be some critical questions we're going to need to ask of our vendors, of the people that are doing discovery calls with us. Let's really find out exactly what's going on, because sometimes we talk about automation, but it's not AI. And sometimes automation is the right answer, right? I'm not saying AI is the answer for everything going forward, right? But we're going to need to have more nuanced conversations about this. But ideas for how AI is going to impact logistics, and these things could start coming in this next year, or already exist, right? So thinking about evaluating with real-time data and considering a lot more factors than maybe a person can do in supplier selection, carrier selection, returns. Should we return it? Should we tell them to just keep it? Where should we return it to? Those kinds of questions. Maybe leveraging the data about the return to prevent future returns. Routes. How should we do our routing? Being able to bring in real-time traffic, real-time weather, making those adjustments on the fly, getting the drivers to participate in this, right? That's going to be huge. Equipment balancing, especially as we talk about what's happening with the West Coast ports, this is going to be important. I mean, think about the backhaul from the US East Coast back to Southeast Asia. Are they going to have to start taking the long way around? Equipment is going to be, and equipment is always an issue. Equipment's going to continue to be an issue on the ocean side, on the truckload side, all of it. Fraud, double brokering, anyone? Can we get a solution? That would be great. Somebody figure that out. You will you will have an ROI. Chatbots, appointment making, simulation. What if insert one of the disruptions we've talked about today here? So I really think there is a lot that we can do with AI as we continue. We're going to see that revealed more and more. Another reason I'm really excited to go to Manifest. But again, disrupting the disruptions is all about resilience within your processes and making sure that we're doing the foundational things that we need to do to overcome what's happened. All right, I'm not going to be able to predict the 2024 disruptions. I gave you some ideas, some previews that are based on what happened last year. The only thing I can predict is that it's going to be disruptive. Questions to ask yourself: if all of the 2023 disruptions repeated in your business, not only the ones we've talked about here, the ones in your vertical, in your company, in your department, in your team, in your life, if all of those repeated, would you still be able to hit your 2024 goals? If the answer is no, it might be time to just put a little perspective on that. Whatever, maybe 2023 was like a year of that would never be repeated, or maybe it's going to be worse this year. Let's take some perspective, because the other thing that we can do when we think about our goals is, should I be focusing more on foundational resilience than that next level leap that maybe I was planning on? Because if you plan to leap, but your foundation is shaky, you're not going to achieve your leap and you're not going to improve your foundation. So sometimes things need to be, we need to focus more long-term on the foundations that we've set for our teams, our departments, our companies. So just something to think about, a good thought experiment as you start to look at your 2024 goals. Thank you guys so much for joining, for participating in the comments. If I missed yours, I apologize. I'm still getting my flow as a live streamer here. But you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can reach out, book a call. Services that I provide are personal process bootcamp. This is really going to help you with your personal foundational skills so you can help your teams level up. Total team transformation. This is where we look at personal process, engage your team. I don't know if you know, but 69% of logistics professionals are disengaged at work, and people aren't quitting because the economy is a little bit different. So, this is a time where you're going to want to engage your team, fractional support, custom engagements, all of that good stuff. Thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, I'll stay on the live here for another 2 minutes and we can have some more discussion, or have a great day. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. I didn't realize how weird this was going to be, just staying for an extra minute. Hold on. There we go. All right, got a question. Any thoughts on shippers planning Protect from Freeze this season? Like I said, I really did try to look up before the call, like the Farmer's Almanac and what the anticipated winter season was going to look like. But I think that we need to continue to evaluate this and continue to look for solutions. This is not my particular area of expertise, although I've done some reefer where, obviously temperature control is really important. And the end of that I was always struggling with was getting up to temp, not keeping it from exceeding temperature. So I don't think I actually have anything. Hannah, I'm going to reach back out to you, do a little research, see what's new and interesting in the space resulting from that. But like we talked about, climate is going to continue to be an issue. And even if we didn't have big snowstorms, the extreme temperatures are absolutely impacting the way we do business. And that's a really great point that I didn't include when we were on the climate slide. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.